Hello, I'm Linda, and I'm 31 years old. For a long time, I believed I had a strong bond with my mother-in-law, Melissa. From our very first meeting, her warm smile made me feel at home, and I truly thought she cared for me. Little did I know, beneath her friendly facade, Melissa was scheming to drive a wedge between my husband, Scott, and me. At first, I didn't think much of it when Melissa began calling Scott daily while I was at work. It seemed perfectly normal for a mother to stay in touch with her son, but as time went on, I noticed a chilling change in Scott's demeanor toward me. He became distant, and at times his attitude felt tinged with hostility. Perplexed by this sudden shift, I decided to address it one evening when we were alone. "Scott, is everything okay? You've been acting differently," I asked. His response was curt. "I'm fine, Linda. Just leave me alone. Isn't that what you want?" He snapped back. Taken aback, I pressed further. "What did you mean?" I asked, confused. He accused me angrily. "Do you just want to take all my money and leave?" My heart sank at his accusation. "How could you think that? Where is all this coming from?" I demanded, feeling deeply hurt. Scott sighed, his expression softening as he sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I'm sorry for lashing out, Linda. It's just, something's been bothering me," he admitted. "What's going on, love? We can face anything together," I reassured him, hoping to lighten his load. After a moment of hesitation, he confessed, "It's hard to say this, but my mom has been saying negative things about you during our calls." I was shocked. Melissa, the woman I had come to regard almost as a second mother, speaking ill of me. Initially, I struggled to believe what Scott was telling me. How could she betray us like this? As doubt clouded my judgment, I cautiously asked, "Are you sure you're not misinterpreting her words? Sometimes communication can get mixed up." But Scott was adamant. "I'm not misreading anything, Linda. It's clear my mother has taken a dislike to you, and it's not just a misunderstanding," he insisted. "That's hard to believe," I replied, still in disbelief. Just last week, Melissa and I had a great conversation. I shared our recent successes and our plans to start the business we've always dreamed of. Scott countered with a troubling revelation. "That's ironic because she told me today that you're planning to hijack our business, register everything under your name, and then disappear with all the profits." Flabbergasted, I shot back, "That's absurd. Why would she say such things?" Scott sighed, a mixture of frustration and confusion lacing his voice. "I know it sounds crazy, and I hate to admit it, but her words have been gnawing at me. I started to believe her accusations, which is why I snapped at you earlier. I'm sorry." Determined to clear the air, I proposed a plan. "If you think I won't believe you, let's prove it together. Next time she calls, I can listen in without her knowing. How about connecting me through Zoom while you take her call on speaker? This way I can hear everything she says." "That sounds like a solid plan," Scott agreed, his hope rekindled that this would help us understand the situation better. We set our plan in motion the very next day. While I headed to work, Scott stayed home to prepare for the call. True to our arrangement, he added me to a conference call while answering his mother's call on speaker. Unaware of my silent presence, Melissa began their conversation with the usual pleasantries before quickly shifting to express her concerns. "How was your day, Scott?" she asked. "It was fine, Mom. And yours?" he replied. "It was stressful," she said, and I braced myself to hear more. "I've been really worried about you, especially given your situation," Melissa said, her voice dripping with concern. "What situation?" Scott asked, playing along. "The fact that you're married to such a deceitful woman," she blurted out, exposing her true feelings about me without hesitation. Hidden on the other line, I listened in shock as the reality of Melissa's animosity became painfully evident. Her words were not mere misunderstandings. They were calculated and harmful. "She doesn't love you, Scott. How much more do I need to say for you to see the truth?" Melissa's voice was thick with distress. "These things affect me too, you know. The longer you stay with that woman, the more it takes years off my life through distress." "Mom, please stop," Scott interjected, his patience wearing thin. "I haven't found any proof of what you're claiming, so please stop with these baseless accusations." "So you're calling me a liar now? You don't want to hear my advice?" Melissa retorted sharply. "I'm just telling you the truth. She hates you. If you're not careful, she's going to take all your money and leave you. Let me call you back, okay? Love you." "Wait, let me tell you more." But Scott had reached his limit. He hung up the phone and unmuted me from the conference call. Hello, Linda. How could she speak about you like that? Has she lost her mind? Scott was visibly shaken. I know it's a lot to take in. I'm sorry you had to hear all this, but it was important for you to know the truth firsthand, he said. I'm speechless, I replied, my voice heavy with disbelief. She sounded like a completely different person, nothing like the sweet lady who used to check in on me. Now I see that she's only been pretending to care, gathering information to twist against me and make you distrust me. As the reality of Melissa's deceit settled in, I felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal. The person I once thought cared for me had been scheming all along. I once viewed Melissa as an ally and supporter, but now I realized she was actively working against me. Scott reassured me. I no longer believe her words, especially after our conversation last night. That woman is unbelievable. I almost fell for her lies, even though I trusted her as my mother. I understand, babe. It must be hard to come to terms with the extent of her lies and deception, especially since she's your mom, I said, trying to comfort him. I'm more angry than anything, Scott admitted. I don't know what she hopes to gain by constantly speaking so harshly about you, but at least now you've seen it for yourself. She's completely lost it, he continued. Yes, we need to confront her about everything, I agreed. Of course, so let's do it now, Scott suggested, surprised by my pause. I think we should wait a bit, I replied thoughtfully. What do you mean? I thought now that we know, we could just confront her, he pressed, not understanding my hesitation. I'd like to listen in on a few more phone calls first, I requested, needing more evidence to fully grasp the extent of Melissa's manipulation. Scott was taken aback by my request, thinking one conversation would be enough for action, but I felt we needed a fuller picture before confronting her about her deceitful behavior. If there's one thing I've learned about master manipulators, it's that they love playing with people's perceptions and memories. Confronting Melissa too quickly could give her the chance to gaslight us, making us doubt our own understanding of her words. As painful as it was to hear her spiteful accusations, I knew I needed more evidence. I wanted to record these instances to have undeniable proof of her demeaning comments when I finally confronted her. For the next 3 weeks, Scott secretly added me to the calls as planned, with Melissa completely oblivious to my presence. She continued her usual tirade of belittling remarks and false accusations. Though I had grown accustomed to her deceit, I was still shocked by her ability to twist innocent interactions from our past into something sinister, portraying me as the villain. With each covert phone call, my anger mounted, fueling my determination to expose Melissa's true character. This wasn't just about my vindication anymore. It was crucial to protect others who might fall victim to her manipulative tactics. These recorded conversations became vital pieces of evidence, essential for revealing her deceit. As I braced myself to confront her, I knew it wouldn't be easy to challenge a family member who had spun such a complex web of deceit. Yet I found comfort in Scott's unwavering support, ready to stand by me against the barrage of lies we were sure to face after enduring these weeks of secret listening and evidence gathering. I was fed up with my mother-in-law's relentless undermining. It was time to take a stand. One evening, Scott and I settled in our living room, strategizing our approach to finally confront Melissa. Just as we were about to refine our plan, the shrill ring of my phone shattered the quiet. It was Melissa calling me directly, likely another one of her so-called friendly check-ins. After uncovering her deceit, I was furious and ready to confront her immediately. However, Scott hesitated. Wait, babe. I know you want to address this now, but maybe we should hold off for just a moment, he suggested. Why? What for? I shot back, barely containing my anger. For starters, we don't know why she's calling. Maybe she's calling to confess. It's unlikely, but still a possibility, he reasoned. Please just listen to what she has to say. If she doesn't come clean and apologize by the end of this call, then we can go ahead with your plan for revenge. No questions asked. Scott's voice carried a hint of hope. She's still my mom, Linda. Part of me hopes she's realized her mistakes and will change. I just need to be sure. Seeing the pain in Scott's eyes reminded me of the toll this situation was taking on him. I realized I had been so consumed by my feelings that I hadn't fully considered his struggle. Fine, I'll hold off on confronting her for now. I reluctantly agreed. Thank you, Linda, Scott replied, his voice filled with relief. Taking a deep breath, I answered the phone, my tone guarded but resolute. Hello, Melissa. How are you? Her voice dripped with the usual sugary sweetness, which only fueled my irritation. I'm fine, Melissa. How are you? I managed to reply, keeping my composure. Melissa seemed slightly taken aback by the coolness in my voice, but I was determined not to let her manipulate the conversation this time. As much as I wasn't ready to lay all my cards on the table just yet, I couldn't resist the urge to hint at my awareness of her schemes. I wanted her to feel that something had shifted, that her actions weren't as hidden as she believed. Oh, darling, are you sure you're fine? You sound so upset, she probed, feigning concern. I suppose I'm a bit upset, Melissa, I said, trying to maintain a calm yet firm demeanor. You see, I've recently come across some rather shocking news. What news, dear? She inquired, her voice laced with a mix of curiosity and caution. Well, it turns out that someone has been speaking very unkindly about me, slandering my name for no apparent reason. Perhaps out of jealousy or something else, I continued, choosing my words carefully. Oh dear, how awful, Melissa responded, her tone attempting to mimic sympathy. Yes, it is awful, Melissa. Have you ever encountered someone so cruel that they would harm another's reputation for no reason? I asked pointedly, subtly steering the conversation toward her behavior. The silence that followed was telling. Through this carefully veiled dialogue, I aimed to let her know I was onto her, setting the stage for a confrontation that, while postponed, was inevitable. I think we need to continue this conversation tomorrow, dear. I'm suddenly feeling very tired, she said hastily, cutting me off before I could react to her swift exit. As soon as the call ended, Scott's phone buzzed with a new notification. It was a text message from Melissa. Got another update on your slimy wife. Someone else has been talking about her too. Turns out I'm not the only one who thinks she's no good. You need to get out of that situation while you can. I'll call you tomorrow while she's at work to tell you the full story. Both Scott and I were stunned, deeply hurt by her ongoing deception. The sight of the text seemed to obliterate any lingering doubt Scott had about his mother's duplicity. He looked ready to take decisive action. We need to stop her, Linda. How can she continue to be so deceitful? He said, his voice a mix of anger and resolve. It seemed she cut the call short to fabricate more lies about me to tell you tomorrow. This is sickening, Scott. I can't believe she would go to such lengths, I replied, feeling a swell of outrage and sadness. I don't care that she's my mother. She's wrong, and she must be held accountable for the pain she's causing us, Scott declared, his face set in determination. Despite the grim revelations, this ordeal strangely brought Scott and me closer together. We found comfort in each other's company, reaffirming our bond during this tumultuous time. As we spent the night consoling each other, our resolve only strengthened for the next day. I headed to work with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing we were finally going to confront this issue head-on later. Scott called me, signaling it was time to execute our plan. As usual, he added me to a conference call while Melissa was on the line, unaware of my presence. Once the usual pleasantries were exchanged, Melissa wasted no time diving into her fabrications. Oh, what a day it's been. You wouldn't believe what they've been saying. Some people are accusing her of embezzling funds and bribing officials to get her way. I was so upset. I practically begged for your comfort yesterday. I played along, but her words ignited a fire in me. Really? Is that how you remember our conversation from last night? I interjected, finally breaking my silence. The surprise in her voice was palpable as she realized I had been listening all along. I don't remember saying or doing any of those things at all, I stated calmly, my voice clear and unwavering. Caught off guard, Melissa nearly choked on her drink, probably thinking she was hallucinating for a moment. Don't worry, Melissa, you're not imagining things. I'm here on a conference call with Scott. I've been listening to your conversations for the past 3 weeks, I revealed, my tone steady. Linda, how did you? I believe there's been a misunderstanding, Melissa stammered, her voice pitching with panic. I let out a cold laugh, refusing to let her twist the narrative. Oh please, don't insult my intelligence, Melissa. The act is up. I'm fully aware of the games you've been playing and the lies you've been feeding Scott. We're no longer going to be pawns in your schemes. I can't believe you'd be so cruel and manipulative for no reason. What drove you to do this? Scott chimed in, his tone a mix of disbelief and frustration. So, you think you're better than me now, Scott? Do you think you're some kind of hero trying to save the day? I haven't done anything wrong. I was just discussing hypothetical situations. It's not my fault you two misunderstood everything. You're pathetic, Melissa. Even now, after being caught, you're trying to cover your tracks so clumsily. I countered sharply. But don't worry, I've recorded everything you've said. Let me refresh your memory a bit. I then played some of the audio recordings. For weeks, I had listened to those cruel words, and each time they sent chills down my spine. But I could sense Melissa's panic. Her voice faltered as she attempted to talk over the recordings, desperately trying to defend herself against the undeniable evidence being laid out before her. Finally realizing she had no escape, Melissa dropped her facade. Well, Linda, guess what? I don't care that you found out the truth. So what? What are you going to do? We all know you're bad for my son, she retorted, her tone dripping with contempt. Bad for him in what way exactly? I pressed, eager to hear her justification. I don't know. You're hiding something. I can feel it. I don't have any evidence, but I just know you're no good for my son. She snapped back, her argument weak and baseless. Her accusations highlighted her desperation and inability to manipulate the situation any further. I'm going to expose you for the manipulator you truly are, you deceitful person. How dare you? Once I tell everyone in the family about this, they're all going to side with me, not you. No one will believe an outsider like you, Linda, Melissa hissed venomously. You're mistaken, Melissa, I replied calmly, confidence ringing clear in my voice. What you haven't realized, despite my earlier mention, is that I've been recording this conversation too. That includes your conversation with me last night and the text messages you sent to Scott. You've played your hand, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. Not only are these conversations recorded, but we also have evidence of your ongoing deceit. Scott's voice, a mix of sadness and resolve, cut through the tension. I hate to say it, but I'm done making excuses for you. I can no longer justify your actions or hope for your change. Sensing the gravity of her situation, Melissa suddenly shifted her tone. Baby Linda, let's discuss this privately. This information doesn't need to spread. I'll apologize, alright? Just delete those recordings. Let me come over right now. You're finishing your shift soon, right? Let's settle this over a cup of tea. Save it, Melissa. Your attempts to clean up your mess are pathetic. Do you have no shame? It's far too late for apologies, especially when they come only after being caught. Who knows how long you would have continued this deceit if we hadn't confronted you today. I shot back sharply. We're going to tell everyone about your actions, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Just to be clear, I no longer wish to be in contact with you. I can't surround myself with your negativity any longer. Scott declared firmly, as promised in our conversation. We exposed Melissa in various family group chats, informing our relatives of her manipulative tactics. Overcome with fear and embarrassment, she left the family groups, but we added her back so she could face the consequences of her actions. Everyone in the chats was disappointed and appalled by her behavior, and they unanimously agreed that she needed to be temporarily excommunicated from family gatherings to reflect and hopefully improve her character. Melissa called us repeatedly, pleading for us to stop tarnishing her reputation, but we stood firm, reminding her of the bed she had made for herself. After exposing her, a deep sense of satisfaction washed over me. Melissa's hold over us had diminished, and we were reclaiming control of our lives. I was confident she wouldn't dare manipulate anyone like this again.